Elara Winford never imagined her husband, Jaxon Mirell, was living a second life until one photo revealed a truth dark enough to tear her entire world apart. Jaxon Mirell looked like the perfect husband. But when Elara Winford opened a hidden photo folder, she uncovered a secret that would shatter their marriage and expose a dangerous scam. Elara Winford believed Jaxon Mirell was the love of her life, until a single image exposed a deception so deep it threatened her family, her identity, and her future. Jaxon Mirell kept his lies buried well, but when Elara Winford found the photo he meant to hide, she stepped into a nightmare of fraud, manipulation, and betrayal. Elara Winford thought she married a man she could trust until a forgotten photo revealed Jaxon Mirell's chilling double life. Elara Winford lived a quiet, structured life that made her feel grounded and safe. At 25, she believed she had achieved a kind of balance that many her age struggled to find. Her job at a local design studio in Vancouver kept her creative. Her small circle of friends kept her supported, and her marriage to Jaxon Mirell provided the sense of stability she valued above everything else. Their apartment was modest but warm, filled with handmade furniture pieces, framed travel photos, and small decorations that symbolized moments they had shared. To anyone on the outside, Elara appeared to be living a simple and fulfilling life. Jaxon Mirell fit neatly into that life. He carried himself with charm that never seemed forced. He knew how to appear attentive, responsible, and caring. His calm nature made him seem reliable, and his confidence made him appear capable. He told stories about business opportunities, overseas projects, and partnerships he was cultivating. Elara accepted these things without hesitation, believing them to be part of the natural progression of their lives together. She admired his ambition and respected his independence. Whenever he came home late or left for sudden trips, she trusted his explanations and continued building the life she imagined for both of them. Their friends saw them as a young couple with potential. They were the pair who looked aligned in their goals, the couple who seemed to be genuinely in love. Elara always kept their home tidy, preparing simple meals and making sure their schedules blended well. Jaxon contributed just enough to maintain the illusion of a balanced partnership. He celebrated anniversaries, remembered birthdays, and offered gestures that strengthened the image of a devoted husband. Elara never questioned the consistency, because it felt real. Yet beneath the surface of their marriage were subtle signs that something was off. Elara sometimes noticed unexplained charges on bank statements, but Jaxon dismissed them with simple explanations. There were moments when he appeared distracted, scrolling through his phone for long periods before quickly putting it away when she entered the room. He often traveled for project meetings, always returning with souvenirs that made those trips seem genuine. Elara accepted these unspoken gaps in their life because she trusted him completely. She never suspected that, while she was preparing their future, he was preparing something entirely different. Jaxon maintained two lives that never intersected, one built with Elara, and one built on secrecy. He made sure the version of himself she saw appeared honest. He had learned how to mimic sincerity, and Elara believed every part of it. Each lie was delivered with ease, each fabricated story layered carefully over the truth he kept hidden. His ability to manage both lives came from months of practice, and Elara never imagined she was being drawn into something she could not see. The quiet routine of their days continued without interruption. They worked, shared meals, visited friends, and filled their weekends with small adventures around the city. Elara viewed their life as stable, predictable, and safe. She took photos of their outings, documenting memories she never realized were built on a foundation of deception. Jaxon encouraged her to store these images in cloud folders, pretending to appreciate the sentiment while using the system for purposes she never understood. Elara's comfort made her vulnerable. Her belief in their marriage left her unsuspecting of the truth forming behind the scenes. While she imagined a long future with the man she loved, Jaxon was preparing a future that did not include her in the way she expected. Everything remained intact, until one quiet afternoon, when Elara opened a folder in Jaxon's cloud storage to retrieve a simple travel photo. What she found there, hidden among familiar memories, shattered the gentle stability she believed she had built. That single discovery became the key that unlocked a truth far darker than betrayal, one that threatened not only her heart, but her entire identity. Elara stared at the screen, unsure if her mind was interpreting the image correctly. At first glance, it appeared to be just another photo taken during one of Jaxon's supposed business trips. The background showed a city she didn't recognize, illuminated by nightlights reflecting off glass towers. But her attention locked onto the center of the image, the figure of Jaxon standing next to a woman she had never seen before, his arm comfortably resting around her waist. The woman's smile was open and confident, the kind captured only when someone feels safe with the person beside them. The sense of familiarity between them could not be dismissed as accidental. Elara's pulse quickened as she enlarged the photo. The timestamp indicated it had been taken just 3 weeks earlier, during a trip Jaxon claimed was a short investor meeting in Toronto. He had returned home, tired but cheerful, carrying a small box of maple chocolates as if to cement the memory of a harmless trip. Yet here he was in a city he never mentioned, posing intimately with someone who appeared far more than a passing acquaintance. The image contradicted every detail he had shared. She continued scrolling through the folder, each click revealing more evidence that Jaxon's life had branches she had never been allowed to see. There were screenshots of conversations, scans of documents, and additional photos showing him at dinners, hotel lounges, and unfamiliar apartments. The woman's presence appeared repeatedly, standing beside him with the ease of someone woven into his routine. The discovery grew heavier with each file she opened. Elara tried to rationalize the situation. Perhaps the woman was a client or colleague. Maybe the photos were part of a project or marketing shoot. But the expressions, the proximity, the casual gestures, they had an intimacy that could not be explained by professional ties. What unsettled her even more was the structure of the file name. They were labeled with numbers and abbreviations she didn't recognize. They seemed organized with precision, suggesting these moments were not accidental captures, but documented interactions meant for systematic reference. As she scrolled further, she found something even more disturbing. A document titled with a sequence of letters and numbers appeared in the collection. Opening it revealed information about multiple online accounts, usernames, and what looked like profiles linked to dating platforms she never knew he used. Some seemed inactive, others recently logged into. There were notes describing interactions, schedules, and even reminders that hinted at emotional manipulation. The woman in the photos appeared to be part of a larger pattern, not an isolated betrayal. The certainty of deception settled in her stomach like ice. Yet, alongside her, shock came in uneasiness she couldn't ignore. Some entries in the folder didn't resemble romantic involvement at all. They looked transactional, almost strategic, as if Jaxon was managing people rather than relationships. Elara struggled to understand the broader purpose behind such organized secrecy. Her curiosity pushed her to delve deeper. She searched the woman's face online using tools available on her computer. After some digging, she found a social media profile that matched the appearance in the photos. The woman's name was Seraphine Dovair, a digital consultant based in Montreal. Her profile showed confidence, frequent travel, and posts featuring luxury settings. Not once did she mention Jaxon, nor did she reveal anything that connected her publicly to him. The secrecy around their connection only increased the weight of the discovery. Elara stopped scrolling when she uncovered a final piece of evidence, a scanned form listing her own name. The document appeared to be an application for a joint financial account she had never agreed to. Her signature was forged with unsettling accuracy. Jaxon's information filled the rest of the form, linked to a series of transactions she couldn't comprehend. There was no trace of Seraphine in this document, but the timing matched the photos she had just seen. In that moment, Elara realized the betrayal was more intricate than a simple affair. Jaxon had constructed a parallel existence, one that involved hidden identities, financial maneuvering, and relationships rooted in manipulation. The photo she stumbled upon was not only proof of infidelity, it was the doorway into a labyrinth of lies so deliberate that untangling it would threaten the foundation of everything she believed about her life. Elara sat motionless at her desk, the glow of the screen casting an eerie stillness across the room. She felt as though she were drifting outside her own reality, watching her life unravel in slow, painful layers. The evidence she uncovered didn't feel like ordinary deceit. It felt coordinated, intentional, and deeply dangerous. Yet she couldn't bring herself to disconnect from the files. Each piece seemed to hint at a larger, hidden structure, something built with care and secrecy, something that used her without her knowledge. She copied a few documents onto a private drive before closing the folder. Her hands shook as she tried to steady her breathing. Every part of her routine, every comforting memory she shared with Jaxon, now felt tainted. The small gestures she once attributed to love appeared instead as calculated distractions. She began replaying moments that once felt normal, now searching for signs she had missed. While trying to process her next steps, she opened her email to check for anything that might explain the documents. Instead, she found a message in her spam folder with a subject line containing her full name. The sender was unfamiliar, and the message had been sent 2 weeks earlier. Inside was a single sentence telling her to be careful whom she trusted. No attachments, no explanation, no signature. The warning felt abrupt and out of place, yet deeply connected to what she had uncovered. She couldn't tell if the message came from a stranger, someone Jaxon knew, or perhaps one of the individuals listed in his files. The unease grew until it pushed her to research further. She began examining the financial documents in detail, cross-checking the accounts listed. To her horror, she discovered that several transactions had been made in her name without her involvement. Loans, transfers, and unusual activity flagged by banking algorithms. Some of the accounts looked newly created, as if someone planned to funnel money through them. Her name appeared repeatedly in forged signatures. The scale of the fraud made her feel exposed, as though she had been living beside a stranger who saw her not as a partner, but as a means. Determined to understand the full scope, Elara reached out to someone she trusted, her older brother, Kalen. He worked in cybersecurity and had always been practical and protective. Without giving away the emotional details, she asked if he could help her analyze suspicious documents. He agreed immediately. Unaware of the larger crisis unfolding beneath her request, Kalen's preliminary analysis confirmed her worst fears. The files were connected to a series of fraudulent operations involving identity manipulation, financial extraction, and emotional targeting. Some entries suggested the involvement of multiple individuals across different cities. The term asset rotation appeared repeatedly in the notes, as if referring to people used strategically for financial gain. Elara realized she wasn't the first person caught in this web, and she might not be the last. As Kalen dug deeper, he noticed inconsistencies in Jaxon's employment records. The company Elara believed he worked for did not list him as an employee. The projects he discussed had no trace online. Travel itineraries, she remembered, seemed mismatched with actual ticket bookings. Every piece of Jaxon's life had been curated to appear legitimate, yet everything collapsed under scrutiny. Days passed with Elara pretending to maintain her normal routine. She cooked, cleaned, and even smiled at Jaxon as he moved around the apartment. Unaware that his carefully guarded reality was crumbling, she monitored his behavior closely, noticing things she once overlooked: late-night calls, unknown numbers, and sudden tension when she approached him unexpectedly. He seemed slightly on edge, as if sensing something had shifted. One evening, Elara checked one of the hidden online accounts again, and found a new document uploaded only minutes earlier. It wasn't a financial record or a message. It was a scanned passport belonging to Seraphine Dovair. The edges looked altered, the information inconsistent with official formatting. The document suggested a fabricated identity. Seraphine was not just a woman. He knew she appeared to be an accomplice in whatever scheme he was running. A chilling realization settled over Elara. She was married to someone involved in a complex fraud network, one that manipulated identities, exploited trust, and used relationships as tools. And without knowing it, she had become part of their operation. But the most terrifying question remained unanswered. Was she an asset they were still using, or a liability they were preparing to remove? Elara began to feel the weight of every hour pressing against her chest. The closer she looked, the more her life resembled a carefully orchestrated illusion. She knew she could not confront Jaxon without solid evidence, nor could she risk him discovering what she now knew. Every move she made had to be deliberate, quiet, and undetectable. The danger was no longer abstract. It existed in every forged document, every hidden account, every photograph she had uncovered. Her instincts told her that if she acted impulsively, she could trigger consequences she wasn't prepared for. Kalen continued helping her from a distance, unaware that Jaxon was at the center of everything. With his expertise, Elara gained access to encrypted folders Jaxon had attempted to conceal. Within them, she found spreadsheets tracking payments received through manipulated accounts, along with notes detailing target profiles. Each profile described basic information about different individuals, including personality traits and vulnerabilities. Elara's own profile sat among them. It was clinical and detached, describing her as stable, trusting, and emotionally steady. Under a section labeled Projected Value, a set of financial figures appeared, numbers that made her stomach churn. The realization that she had been documented, analyzed, and categorized for exploitation broke something inside her. Her marriage had not been based on affection. It had been structured around what she could provide. She was part of a long-term operation, a role chosen for her predictability and reliability. The affection she thought she shared with Jaxon had been used to maintain her cooperation. She wondered how long the deception had been planned. She wondered if any part of their life together had been genuine, as she pieced together more information. The scope of the network widened. The individuals listed in the notes were spread across different regions, each connected through coded identifiers. Some names were real, some fabricated, and others matched publicly verifiable people who appeared to be unwitting victims. Transactions were split among these profiles, creating layers of confusion designed to obscure the core operations. Elara realized that reporting Jaxon immediately would be dangerous. Without proper evidence, she could be dismissed or even implicated. Jaxon had already set up accounts in her name, proof that he had prepared contingencies to protect himself. She began secretly consulting with a financial crime hotline, requesting hypothetical guidance without revealing her identity. The agent on the line explained that such operations often involved coordinated partnerships, long-term grooming, and extensive manipulation. When Elara asked whether victims were sometimes used to facilitate illegal activities unknowingly, the agent confirmed it was common. The conversation left her shaken, but also provided clarity. She needed formal help, but she had to obtain it carefully. Meanwhile, Jaxon's behavior shifted subtly. He lingered longer near her workspace. He asked more questions about her schedule. His gaze lingered on her phone and laptop. These silent observations made Elara suspect he felt something changing. She started leaving misleading browser tabs, open recipes, vacation options, reminder notes, hoping to create a facade of normalcy. Still, she felt his eyes following her more closely than before. One night, while she pretended to sleep, she heard the soft clicking of her laptop being opened. Jaxon sat at her desk, scrolling through her files with measured patience. Elara kept her breathing steady, fighting the urge to react. She had already hidden the incriminating evidence on an external drive in her work bag. But the sight of him inspecting her device confirmed he suspected something. His movements were calm, precise, no anger, no panic. It was the silence that made it terrifying. He was not afraid of what she might know. He was calculating what she might do next. The next morning, Jaxon acted normally, but the atmosphere had changed. Elara felt his watchfulness tightening. She realized she had to leave before he decided she was no longer useful. She discreetly packed a few essentials and stored the external drive in her jacket, planning to meet Kalen later in the day, under the pretense of running errands. She avoided anything that might signal a sudden departure. No suitcases, no unusual behavior, no abrupt changes in routine. As she stepped out of the apartment, she felt Jaxon's eyes on her from the kitchen doorway. His expression was unreadable, his posture relaxed yet attentive. For the first time, she felt certain he was aware of her discoveries. The only question was whether he had decided what to do about them. Elara kept walking, forcing herself not to turn back. She understood that if she showed even a hint of fear, she might not make it out of the building. She clutched her jacket, feeling the weight of the external drive inside. It contained everything she would need to expose the truth. But it also made her a threat to the man she once believed she loved. She stepped onto the street, the air cold against her skin. She didn't know how much time she had before Jaxon followed, but she knew the moment she left, her life would neave. Elara moved quickly through the city streets, trying to maintain the appearance of a normal routine, even as her heart pounded with urgency. The weight of the external drive in her jacket felt heavier with every step. She knew that going directly to Kalen would be risky, so she took several detours, paying attention to reflective surfaces and passing cars. The possibility of being followed lingered in her mind, forming a tension she could not shake. Every footstep behind her caused her muscles to tighten. Every car slowing near the curb made her brace for the worst. She couldn't be sure whether Jaxon would act immediately or wait for the right moment. She arrived at a crowded cafe and chose a seat near the back, far from the windows. There, she plugged the drive into her laptop, confirming the files were intact. She encrypted them twice, creating layers of protection in case anything happened. Only after securing the evidence did she send Kalen a discreet message asking to meet at a public place with strong surveillance, an attempt to balance safety with necessity. She waited, watching the faces of strangers as if any one of them could be connected to Jaxon's operations. Before Kalen arrived, Elara noticed a man enter the cafe and scanned the room slowly. She didn't recognize him, but his attention lingered briefly in her direction before he moved to the counter. She couldn't tell if he was merely looking for a seat or if he had followed her. Her instinct urged her to remain cautious, but not appear alarmed. When Kalen finally walked in, she felt a wave of relief, though the unease remained settled under her skin. Kalen listened quietly as she explained everything: Jaxon's secret lives, the fraudulent accounts, the woman in the photos, and the network she uncovered. His expression shifted from confusion to concern, then to a seriousness she had never seen before. He examined the files, his quick analysis revealing deeper layers she'd overlooked. Some notes contained coded timestamps and references to upcoming transactions. One entry stood out: an impending transfer scheduled within 72 hours. The funds were large, and her name was tied to them. Kalen realized that if the transaction went through, Elara could be framed as the primary participant. He insisted they go to the authorities immediately, but he also warned that approaching them unprepared might backfire, especially with fraudulent activity linked to her identity. They needed clear evidence, organized and explained, in a way that investigators could follow. They decided to go to a financial crimes division, rather than local police. The nature of the operation required experts who understood identity networks and digital laundering schemes. Together, they headed toward the government building, but when they reached the street, Elara spotted the same man from the cafe, standing near a parked car. His gaze shifted toward them briefly, before he pretended to scroll through his phone. Kalen noticed this too, tightening his grip on Elara's arm as he guided her across the street. They took a longer route, weaving through crowds and crossing multiple intersections to avoid being tracked out inside the financial crimes office. The atmosphere felt sterile and controlled. Officers listened as Kalen explained their situation, and when Elara presented the files, the tone of the room changed instantly. The investigators recognized patterns they had seen in previous cases involving structured relationship scams, identity looping, and financial harvesting operations. The mention of Jaxon's aliases, found in the encrypted folders, triggered recognition. He had been on a watch list under several different names, but each lead had gone cold. Elara had unknowingly been living with someone already suspected of orchestrating sophisticated fraud schemes. The investigators moved quickly, securing the evidence and beginning the process of freezing the accounts tied to her name. They advised her not to return home under any circumstances. A surveillance unit was dispatched to monitor the area around her apartment, but before they arrived, a report came in. The door to her unit had been left ajar. Inside, the living room was untouched, but her personal files, notebooks, and mail had been rifled through. No items of value were missing, only documents that could implicate Jaxon or reveal her knowledge. Jaxon was gone. Elara was placed under protection while the investigation unfolded. Over the next week, authorities traced multiple transactions and identified accomplices. Seraphine Dovair was confirmed to be using a forged identity, her involvement deeper than the photos suggested. She served as a recruiter and liaison, connecting Jaxon to new targets while maintaining her own network of fabricated profiles. The operation stretched across multiple provinces, affecting dozens of victims. Elara's evidence became the key that unraveled the structure. Arrests were made, accounts seized, and several operatives were detained. But Jaxon remained missing, leaving behind only fragments of the life he constructed. Months later, as Elara rebuilt her life, she received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single photo of a shoreline at dusk. No message accompanied it, but the meaning was clear. Somewhere, Jaxon was still out there, watching from a distance, aware that the woman he once manipulated had become the one who destroyed his network. And though her world had been shattered, Elara knew she had escaped something far darker than betrayal. She had escaped a life built entirely on lies.